Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla and I like to talk about books, reading vlogs, all sorts of stuff, but mostly I just do a lot of book reviews. So today I'm going to be talking about the new David Sedaris book, Happy Go Lucky. Another new release from David Sedaris. We've had a couple in the past few years. Honestly, he is one of my all-time favorite authors, so every time he comes out with something, I'm pretty excited for it. Definitely was on the top of my list. I haven't really talked about books I'm excited for that much lately, but this was on the top of my list. Like, I could not wait to get my hands on it, and I did. I actually listened to the audiobook version because when David Sedaris reads his own material, it gets even better. It's just amazing. He's one of those authors that really knows not only how he's writing, but how to deliver his material. I have seen him speak live and it was amazing. Such a fun experience. But yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about his new release. Like I said, it's a book of essays, so it's kind of hard to really summarize it. I don't know. I'll definitely be talking about it pretty openly. I'm going to try not to give too much away, but if you know the nature of his writing, it's kind of not about the destination. It's about the journey. It's about the way he tells the story, so you just have to read it for yourself. I'm just going to get into it. I'm going to talk about my thoughts, my feelings. David Sedaris. His past two releases, while still enjoyable, were actually more diary journal entry style books, and like I said, I still enjoyed them, but I honestly have been kind of yearning for some of the proper essays that he writes, because I feel like his essays, his shorts, they're just hilarious, but they're more than just funny. I feel like they actually help with things like processing the death of his dad are things that he can make funny and make lighthearted, but also still acknowledge the difficult parts of. And it's just a really special skill to be able to do that. I think it's obviously a talent he practices and hones, and he clearly journals really frequently and works on writing all the time. But I also think that he just has a natural voice that is just great for storytelling. So, you can hone your craft and that's good, but I also think he's probably just got a little bit of a knack for it, and obviously comes through again in this collection. This is actually probably my favorite collection from him for quite a while. Even before he released the journal diary entries, there were a few collections that I just wasn't quite as crazy about. Calypso for me was okay. It was not my favorite by him. This just brought me back to a really good collection of essays from him, and it didn't disappoint. Yeah, it reminded me of some of those earlier books of essays and shorts that really helped me fall in love with him as an author. So it's kind of nice to see him back really in that area. And I suspect that maybe it's because he took a break from writing essays, and for two books he was kind of just releasing journals, so now it feels a little bit fresher again. But in this collection he touches on everything from guns to losing his father to fixing his teeth to dealing with the pandemic and lockdowns and all of that. Some of these can be really topical and even seem like they could be really sensitive issues. I feel like they are anything but touchy or tedious when he covers them, just because of the way that he writes. Something about these topics viewed through his lens, he can still offer his opinion and his commentary, but he actually does have the ability to take what could feel a little bit too heavy and make it a little bit lighter and a little bit easier to process. He seems to kind of just take his experiences, pair them with his views, and just douses them in his signature observational humor commentary, just covers them and sprinkles them with that, and it just really results in being able to talk about things that could be considered difficult and just not taking it too seriously, I guess. Like I said, this collection in particular took me back to kind of some of his earlier writings, but his voice is a little bit more mature now. I feel like he is quirkier than ever. He's really embraced every stage of his life. I don't know, it feels that way to me, and I feel like his voice has changed, but also still stayed the same, if that makes sense. Something that I really enjoyed in particular in this collection is that he poked a little bit more fun at Hugh. He talked a little bit more about Hugh, and especially Hugh juxtaposed against his banter with his sisters. I just feel like it's great to hear about Hugh's reaction because he's less goofy and gives us sort of like the straight man perspective compared to like the outlandishness of David and his sisters and what they say and what they do, which is obviously like a little bit more, I don't know, like they just don't have as much of a filter, and I feel like it's kind of nice to see that juxtaposed against Hugh, who is a little bit more like, whoa, you can't say that. He discusses a lot with the pandemic as well, actually. He had quite a few stories that really touched on this, and he didn't like get into like the big picture as much with it. He really talked about like his experience and his sudden feeling of disconnect from the world because of his inability to tour and to connect with his readers, which is a big part of his actual like day-to-day job. He just does a ton of book tours and readings because he's hilarious when he reads live. And I feel like I really liked that he spoke about this kind of openly, I guess. I don't know. And he spoke about how difficult it was and how he would take like really, really miles long walks. He even talks about gaining pandemic weight and having to lose it really quickly before he goes back on tour. I just liked it, but he still made it funny. He still made it funny and just like relatable, but I really like that he talked about that so openly. He also talked about still like throwing dinner parties during the pandemic, and while I don't like really agree, it was still so funny to read about. It was definitely so funny to read about. I mean, I feel like now it would be different, obviously, but early on in the pandemic, I'm not like, I don't know if I would have thrown dinner parties. On a little bit more of a tender note, he does talk about his father and like when he's ailing, and he actually also discusses his death in this and kind of like the impact that that has on his own identity a little bit. Kind of the feeling of like losing your second parent and realizing that you don't really identify as a son anymore. Like you don't have that role in your life where you're being a son or a daughter, but like, or a son for somebody. And I thought that was a really interesting thing that he kind of was touching on. Of course, again, he made it all hilarious. He managed to make it a little bit lighthearted, but I actually think this was also maybe like a good read for me as well, because my dad is sick, and this is just like, it's kind of always nice to hear somebody going through the same thing and the ways in which they're able to kind of deal with it, make it lighthearted, and also like some of the changes to prepare for. You might not just miss someone after losing them. You might feel like a shift in your identity if there was somebody really close to you. So that's really interesting. I didn't really think about that perspective that much, but yeah, I really enjoyed reading that. Definitely a highlight was, I think it was the first or second story, I actually can't remember now, where he goes to a gun range with his sister Lisa, and they shoot guns which he had never done before, and they like learn gun safety and all this stuff. And he does tie in some stuff about mass, like this wasn't that long, I think after Sandy Hook or something like that. I can't really remember which one he said it was, but he doesn't like tie that in with like that much of a narrative. He just talks about their experience and how, as like not a gun person, it was just really kind of funny and kind of interesting. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one a lot. I thought that that was hilariously funny. He also even talks about fixing his teeth, which had been getting progressively wider and wider apart. So there's just a lot of really funny and interesting stuff in here, and if you're a David Sedaris fan, you'll probably love it. It very much gives me the David Sedaris vibes that I kind of haven't felt in a while with his releases. I probably haven't read something like essays by him that have felt this just on the nose in maybe a few years. Yeah, one of the better collections I've read in a while. Hilarious. I think it's always a good time when he talks a lot about like his sisters and their relationships. So yeah, absolutely loved it. 10 out of 10, 5 stars. Hands down 5 stars. Also highly recommend the audiobook because again, he's hilarious when he reads his own writing. That's really all I have to say about this. I honestly don't have a lot of complaints or negative comments to make about it, but I'm like a David Sedaris stan, so I'm sorry. I loved it. It was hilarious. Definitely read it. So that's gonna be it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, please subscribe, all that good stuff. I really, really, really want to get to 800 subscribers by the end of the year, so That's my goal. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I will see you later.